En el nombre del Padre, y del Hijo, y del Espíritu Santo.
Amén.
La gracia de nuestro Señor Jesucristo, el amor del Padre y la comunión del Espíritu Santo estén con todos ustedes.
Y con tu espíritu.
Hermanos, para celebrar dignamente estos sagrados misterios, reconozcamos nuestros pecados. Yo confieso ante Dios Todopoderoso y ante ustedes, hermanos, que he pecado mucho de pensamiento, palabra, obra y omisión, por mi culpa, por mi gran culpa. Por eso ruego a Santa María, siempre Virgen, a los ángeles, a los santos y a ustedes, hermanos, que intercedan por mí ante Dios nuestro Señor. Dios Todopoderoso, tenga misericordia de nosotros, perdone nuestros pecados y nos lleve a la vida eterna.
Amén.
Señor, ten piedad de nosotros.
Señor, ten piedad de nosotros.
Cristo, ten piedad de nosotros. Cristo, ten piedad de nosotros. Señor, ten piedad de nosotros. Señor, ten piedad de nosotros. Oremos. Te rogamos, Señor Dios nuestro, que con tu auxilio avancemos animosamente hacia aquel grado de amor con el que tu Hijo, por la salvación del mundo, se entregó a la muerte. Él que vive y reina contigo en la unidad del Espíritu Santo y es Dios por los siglos de los siglos.
Amén.
Amén.
Lectura del libro del profeta Ezequiel. Esto dice el Señor Dios: Pueblo mío, yo mismo abriré sus sepulcros, los haré salir de ellos y los conduciré de nuevo a la tierra de Israel. Cuando abra sus sepulcros y los saque de ellos, pueblo mío, ustedes dirán que yo soy el Señor. Entonces les infundiré a ustedes mi espíritu y vivirán. Los estableceré en su tierra y ustedes sabrán que yo, el Señor, lo dije y lo cumplí. Palabra de Dios.
Te alabamos, Señor.
Salmo responsorial. Del Señor viene la misericordia, la redención copiosa. Desde lo hondo a ti grito, Señor. Señor, escucha mi voz. Estén tus oídos atentos a la voz de mi súplica. Del Señor viene la misericordia, la redención copiosa. Si llevas cuentas de los delitos, Señor, ¿quién podrá resistir? Pero de ti procede el perdón y así infundes respeto. Del Señor viene la misericordia, la redención copiosa. Mi alma espera en el Señor, espera en su palabra. Mi alma aguarda al Señor más que el centinela la aurora. Aguarde Israel al Señor como el centinela la aurora. Del Señor viene la misericordia, la redención copiosa. Porque del Señor viene la misericordia, la redención copiosa, y Él redimirá a Israel de todos sus delitos. Del Señor viene la misericordia, la redención copiosa. Lectura de la carta del apóstol San Pablo a los romanos. Hermanos y hermanas, los que viven en forma desordenada y egoísta no pueden agradar a Dios. Pero ustedes no llevan esa clase de vida, sino una vida conforme al Espíritu, puesto que el Espíritu de Dios habita verdaderamente en ustedes. Quien no tiene el Espíritu de Cristo no es de Cristo. En cambio, si Cristo vive en ustedes, aunque su cuerpo siga sujeto a la muerte a causa del pecado, su espíritu vive a causa de la actividad salvadora de Dios. Si el Espíritu del Padre que resucitó a Jesús de entre los muertos habita en ustedes, entonces el Padre que resucitó a Jesús de entre los muertos también les dará vida a sus cuerpos mortales por obra de su Espíritu que habita en ustedes. Palabra de Dios.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ, King of endless glory. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ, King of endless glory. I am the resurrection and the life, says the Lord. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will never die. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ, King of endless glory.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Now a man was ill, Lazarus, from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who had anointed the Lord with perfumed oil and dried his feet with her hair. It was her brother Lazarus who was ill, so the sisters sent word to Jesus, saying, Master, the one you love is ill. When Jesus heard this, he said, This illness is not to end in death, but is for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that he was ill, he remained for 2 days in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, Let us go back to Judea. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just trying to stone you, and you want to go back there? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in a day? If one walks during the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if one walks at night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. He said this, and then told them, Our friend Lazarus is asleep, but I am going to awaken him. So the disciples said to him, Master, if he is asleep, he will be saved. But Jesus was talking about his death, while they thought that he meant ordinary sleep. So then Jesus said to them clearly, Lazarus has died, and I am glad for you that I was not there, that you may believe. Let us go to him. So Thomas, called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, Let us also go to die with him. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, only about 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went to meet him, but Mary sat at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise. Martha said to him, I know he will rise in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus told her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary secretly, saying, The teacher is here and is asking for you. As soon as she heard this, she rose quickly and went to him. For Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house comforting her saw Mary get up quickly and go out, they followed her, presuming that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he became perturbed and deeply troubled, and said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Sir, come and see. And Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some said, "Could not the one who opened the eyes of the blind man have done something so that this man would not have died?" So Jesus, perturbed again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay across it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the dead man's sister, said to him, "Lord, by now there will be a stench. He has been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus raised his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you for hearing me. I know that you always hear me. But because of the crowd here, I have said this, that they may believe that you sent me." And when he had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, tied hand and foot with burial bands, and his face was wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, "Untie him and let him go." Now many of the Jews who had come to Mary and seen what he had done began to believe in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
All of today's readings revolve around the theme of resurrection from the dead. Jesus is the resurrection and the life, and only through him may we, like Lazarus, rise from the dead. Now, we, along with Martha, can respond in faith and agreement. We know we will rise, Lord. We know we will rise in the resurrection on the last day. Yes. And this is true. But Jesus is calling Martha in the gospel, and then along with her, calling us to a deeper understanding of resurrection. Jesus desires to restore not merely our physical life after our death, but our spiritual life as well, spiritual life with him. And he wishes to give us new spiritual life, not only after our physical death, but even now, while we still live here. This implies that even now, in our physical bodies, we may suffer a type of death, a type of spiritual death. Is this possible? How can that be? The resurrection that Jesus gives even now is a resurrection from the spiritual slavery and the spiritual death of sin. At this time, this particular time in our culture, we are forced into a very great sensitivity of our physical frailty. A contagious virus threatens the world, particularly those most vulnerable among us, and this causes us great anxiety. Yet just as a virus might threaten our bodies and our society, so also can sin, like a spiritual virus, threaten our spiritual bodies and the spiritual community of all the baptized. But what is it about a virus that is so frightening? Why are viruses so scary? Virus is small, very small. Virus is microscopic. It can't even be seen, yet it can still kill. A virus can hide in our bodies like a spy. We can be affected and not even know it. We can show no symptoms at all, yet at the same time we can still give it to others. A virus itself, so they say, is not even really alive. It has no metabolism, no power to reproduce on its own. It is simply a lump of genetic material that merely hijacks a living cell and infects it with its own faulty DNA. So, brothers and sisters, there is a parallel to this in the spiritual life. In the spiritual life, sin is like a spiritual virus. infecting a spiritual body. Like a virus, sins can be small. Sins can be very, very small. We don't even have to detect them. Those small sins of gossip have become so habitual. Those little white lies that become so easy to say. Those little exaggerations that become so fun to say. Those sour jokes that off-color sarcasm that becomes so fun to hear. Or even those small judgmental thoughts about other people that fool us into thinking that we are so righteous. Like a virus, these sins can hide in our actions, almost like a spy, and they might even go undetected. Oh, it's just a little lie. Nobody will notice. Oh, it's just a little gossip. Nobody will be hurt. Oh, it's just a little sarcasm, little humor. Everybody needs a joke. In other words, we might say, oh, I don't show any symptoms. I might be just fine. My soul is perfectly healthy. And also, like a virus, sin has no life. Sin brings death. It is death. And sins very slowly lessen and weaken our sensitivity to goodness. They weaken our spiritual souls by turning us not into better versions of what God has called us to be, but rather merely into carbon copy images of themselves. And friends, it is so easy to be vigilant only about those large sins, as if those were the only ones that matter. It is so easy to focus on the large sins, well, because those are the ones that everybody else sees. But in the spiritual life, it is often the small that is so big. And it's the small sins that are so big precisely because they are so small. They're so damaging because they go undetected. On a physical level, no one ever dies from a heart attack because of one single episode of eating a bucket of lard. No. But thousands of little episodes of overeating, just a little bit. Day after day after day of a little bit of overeating over time. It builds up. And in the spiritual life, it's not only the big things that can kill. After all, they are easy to detect. They're hard to hide. They're easy to repent from. Rather, it is the small things, the negative thoughts, the little white lies, the little gossip, the little sarcasms. These, over time, in an almost undetectable way, flood our souls with their own genetic code and destroy it. No matter how small, sins bring death. But the good news is this: Jesus Christ brings resurrection. Resurrection. Jesus Christ has destroyed sin and death by himself, dying on the cross and rising again for our sake. Now in Jesus Christ, we can, in this life, experience a spiritual freedom that alone can cause happiness, that alone can be the source of our joy and life. St. Paul wrote, if Christ is in you, this is the English translation, Christ is in you, although the body is dead because of sin, the spirit is alive because of righteousness. If the spirit of the one who raised Jesus from the dead lives in you, he will give life to your mortal body also, through his spirit that is dwelling in you. Let us remember that no matter what we have done, no matter where we have been, no matter how many, how big, how small our sins might be, Jesus offers forgiveness, mercy, and resurrection. Always. All we must do is repent and turn to him. Then we can cry with the psalmist, "For with the Lord there is kindness, and with him is plenteous redemption. And he will redeem Israel from all her iniquities, great and small." Then, just like Lazarus, we can rise, and our souls can be freed from the lethargy of sin and live a life of joy, peace, and mercy towards others. So friends, let us take advantage of these last days of Lent and strengthen our own sensitivity to God and our sensitivity to the goodness around us. Let us throw off not only the big, but even the small, little bad habits that might dampen our sensitivity to this goodness. Let us root our lives in the one who said to Martha, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, will live." Then we can all respond along with St. Martha. "Yes, Lord, I have come to believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one who is coming into the world." Then that one coming into the world will come into our souls, give us his mercy and his grace and his life. And we can all experience that true spiritual freedom that alone brings joy. Amen.
Como una familia unida en la fe, profesemos lo que creemos. Creo en un Dios, Padre Todopoderoso, Creador del cielo y de la tierra, de todo lo visible y lo invisible. Creo en un solo Señor Jesucristo, Hijo de Dios, nacido del Padre antes de todos los siglos, Dios de Dios, luz de luz, Dios verdadero de Dios verdadero, engendrado, no creado, de la misma naturaleza del Padre, por quien todo fue hecho, que por nosotros y los hombres, y por nuestra salvación bajó del cielo, y por obra del Espíritu Santo se encarnó de María, la Virgen, y se hizo hombre. En tiempos de Poncio Pilato, y por nuestra causa fue crucificado en tiempos de Poncio Pilato, pereció y fue sepultado, y resucitó al tercer día según las Escrituras, y subió al cielo, y está sentado a la derecha del Padre, y de nuevo vendrá con gloria para juzgar vivos y muertos, y su reino no tendrá fin. Creo en el Espíritu Santo, Señor y dador de vida, que procede del Padre y del Hijo, que con el Padre y el Hijo recibe una misma adoración y gloria, y que habló por los profetas. Creo en la Iglesia, que es una, santa, católica y apostólica. Confieso que hay un solo bautismo para el perdón de los pecados. Espero la resurrección de los muertos y la vida del mundo futuro. Amén. En el Señor hay misericordia infinita. Con plena confianza le demos nuestras peticiones ante Dios.
Para que la Iglesia, que es una santa, católica y apostólica, continúe proclamando el valor de la vida humana, roguemos al Señor.
Te rogamos, Señor.
Para que las naciones del mundo conozcan el amor y la paz de Jesús, quien se entristeció y lloró por Lázaro. Roguemos al Señor.
Te rogamos, Señor,
Para que los que se están preparando para recibir los sacramentos de iniciación aprendan a morir para sí mismos, como Jesús nos enseñó, y resuciten como Lázaro. Roguemos al Señor.
te rogamos, Señor,
Para que los reunidos en torno a esta mesa extiendan sus brazos con amor hacia aquellos que viven con amargura. Roguemos al Señor.
te rogamos, Señor,
Por el descanso de las almas de los fieles difuntos, por las oraciones en nuestro libro de intenciones, por las intenciones en lo íntimo de nuestros corazones, por la intención sacerdotal de esta misa, por el descanso del alma de Adeline Churaraski, roguemos al Señor.
te rogamos, Señor. Dios amoroso, tú resucitaste a tu Hijo de la muerte. Escucha nuestras oraciones y condúcenos a una vida nueva. Por Jesucristo nuestro Señor. Amén. Bendito seas, Señor Dios del universo, por este pan, fruto de la tierra y del trabajo del hombre, que recibimos de tu generosidad y ahora te presentamos. Él será para nosotros pan de vida. Bendito seas por siempre, Señor. Bendito sea, Señor Dios del universo, por este vino, fruto de la vida y del trabajo del hombre, que recibimos de tu generosidad y ahora te presentamos. Él será para nosotros bebida de salvación. Bendito seas por siempre, Señor. Oren, hermanos, para que este sacrificio mío y de ustedes sea agradable a Dios, Padre Todopoderoso. El Señor reciba de tus manos este sacrificio para alabanza y gloria de su nombre, para nuestro bien y el de toda su santa iglesia. Escúchanos, Dios Todopoderoso, y concede a tus siervos, en quienes infundiste la sabiduría de la fe cristiana, quedar purificados por la eficacia de este sacrificio, por Jesucristo nuestro Señor. El Señor esté con ustedes.
Con tu espíritu.
Levantemos el corazón.
Lo tenemos levantado haciendo al Señor.
Demos gracias al Señor nuestro Dios.
Es justo y necesario.
En verdad, es justo y necesario, es nuestro deber y salvación darte gracias siempre y en todo lugar. Señor, Padre Santo, Dios Todopoderoso y Eterno, por Cristo, Señor nuestro. Porque Él, como verdadero hombre, lloró la muerte de su amigo Lázaro, y como Dios eterno, lo hizo salir vivo del sepulcro. Él mismo, compadecido de todos los hombres, por medio de sus sacramentos, los conduce a una vida nueva. Por eso, los coros de los ángeles eternamente con júbilo te adoran, y también nosotros unimos a ellos nuestras voces, cantando humildemente tu alabanza. Santo, santo, santo,
Es el Señor, Dios del universo.
llenos están el cielo y la tierra de tu gloria. Hosana en el cielo. Bendito el que viene en nombre del Señor. Hosana en el cielo. Santo eres en verdad, Padre, y con razón te alaban todas tus criaturas, ya que por Jesucristo, tu Hijo, Señor nuestro, con la fuerza del Espíritu Santo, das vida y santificas todo, y congregues a tu pueblo sin cesar, para que ofrezca en tu honor un sacrificio sin mancha, desde donde sale el sol hasta el ocaso. Por eso, Padre, te suplicamos que santifiques por el mismo Espíritu estos dones que hemos separado para ti, de manera que se conviertan en el cuerpo y la sangre de Jesucristo, Hijo tuyo y Señor nuestro, que nos mandó celebrar estos misterios. Porque Él mismo, la noche en que iba a ser entregado, tomó pan y dando gracias te bendijo, lo partió y lo dio a sus discípulos diciendo: tomen y coman todos de él, porque esto es mi cuerpo, que será entregado por ustedes. Del mismo modo, acabada la cena, tomó el cáliz, dando gracias, te bendijo, y lo pasó a sus discípulos, diciendo: tomen y beban todos de él, porque este es el cáliz de mi sangre, sangre de la alianza nueva y eterna, que será derramada por ustedes y por muchos para el perdón de los pecados. Hagan esto en conmemoración mía. Este es el misterio de la fe. Anunciamos tu muerte, proclamamos tu resurrección. Ven, Señor Jesús. Así, pues, Padre, al celebrar ahora el memorial de la pasión salvadora de tu Hijo, de su admirable resurrección y ascensión al cielo, mientras esperamos su venida gloriosa, te ofrecemos en esta acción de gracias el sacrificio vivo y santo. Dirige tu mirada sobre la ofrenda de tu iglesia y reconoce en ella la víctima, por cuya inmolación quisiste devolvernos tu amistad, para que, fortalecidos con el cuerpo y la sangre de tu Hijo y llenos de su Espíritu Santo, formemos en Cristo un solo cuerpo y un solo espíritu. Que Él nos transforme en ofrenda permanente, para que gocemos de tu heredad junto con tus elegidos, con María, la Virgen Madre de Dios, su esposo San José, los apóstoles y los mártires, con Santo Domingo y todos los santos, por cuya intercesión confiamos obtener siempre tu ayuda. Te pedimos, Padre, que esta víctima de reconciliación traiga la paz y la salvación al mundo entero. Confirma en la fe y en la caridad a tu iglesia peregrina en la tierra, a tu servidor, el Papa Francisco, a nuestro obispo Jaime, al orden episcopal, a los presbíteros y diáconos, y a todo el pueblo redimido por ti. Atiende los deseos y súplicas de esta familia que has congregado en tu presencia. Reúne en torno a ti, Padre misericordioso, a todos tus hijos dispersos por el mundo, a nuestros hermanos difuntos y a cuantos murieron en tu amistad. Recíbelos en tu reino, donde esperamos gozar todos juntos de la plenitud eterna de tu gloria, por Cristo, Señor nuestro, por quien concedes al mundo todos los bienes. Por Cristo, con Él y en Él, a ti, Dios Padre omnipotente, en la unidad del Espíritu Santo, todo honor y toda gloria por los siglos de los siglos. Amén. Fieles a la recomendación del Salvador, y siguiendo su divina enseñanza nos atrevemos a decir: Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo, santificado sea tu nombre. Venga a nosotros tu reino. Hágase tu voluntad en la tierra como en el cielo. Danos hoy nuestro pan de cada día. Perdona nuestras ofensas, como también nosotros perdonamos a los que nos ofenden. No nos dejes caer en la tentación, y líbranos del mal. Líbranos de todos los males, Señor, y concédenos la paz en nuestros días, para que, ayudados por tu misericordia, vivamos siempre libres de pecado y protegidos de toda perturbación, mientras esperamos la gloriosa venida de nuestro Salvador, Jesucristo. Tuyo es el reino, tuyo el poder y la gloria por siempre, Señor. Señor Jesucristo, que dijiste a tus apóstoles: la paz les dejo, mi paz les doy. No tengas en cuenta nuestros pecados, sino la fe de tu iglesia, y conforme a tu palabra, concédele la paz y la unidad, tú que vives y reinas por los siglos de los siglos.
Amén.
La paz del Señor esté siempre con ustedes.
Con tu espíritu.
Cordero de Dios, que quitas el pecado del mundo, ten piedad de nosotros. Cordero de Dios, que quitas el pecado del mundo, ten piedad de nosotros. Cordero de Dios, que quitas el pecado del mundo, danos la paz. El cuerpo y la sangre de nuestro Señor Jesucristo, unidos en este cáliz, sean para nosotros alimento de vida eterna. Señor Jesucristo, Hijo de Dios vivo, que por voluntad del Padre, obrando el Espíritu Santo, diste con tu muerte y la deja del mundo, líbrame por la recepción de tu cuerpo y de tu sangre, de todas mis culpas y de todo mal. Concédeme cumplir siempre tus mandamientos y jamás permitas que me separe de ti. Este es el Cordero de Dios, que quita el pecado del mundo, dichosos los invitados a la cena del Señor. Señor, no soy digno de que entres en mi casa, pero una palabra tuya bastará para sanarme. El cuerpo de Cristo y carne para la vida eterna. Sangre de Cristo y carne para la vida eterna. Please pray along with me the prayer for spiritual communion. My Jesus, I believe that you are present in the most holy sacrament. I love you above all things, and I desire to receive you into my soul. Since I cannot at this moment receive you sacramentally, come at least spiritually into my heart. I embrace you as if you were already there and unite myself wholly to you. Never permit me to be separated from you. Amen. Oremos. Te rogamos, Dios Todopoderoso, que podamos contarnos siempre entre los miembros de aquel cuyo cuerpo y sangre acabamos de comulgar. Él que vive y reina por los siglos de los siglos. Amen. Let us now say our prayer for all of those who are sick. Señor Dios, refugio nuestro en dificultades, ten compasión de tu pueblo. Tú eres nuestra fuerza en las debilidades y el llanto. Escucha nuestras oraciones por todos los enfermos. Imploramos tu misericordia para recuperar la salud y así poder darte gracias en tu iglesia. Tu Hijo unigénito tomó nuestra naturaleza humana y cargó con nuestras debilidades. Protege y fortalece a enfermeros, doctores y a aquellos prestando primeros auxilios, y a todos los que se están poniendo en peligro al servir a otros en sus necesidades. Santa Virgen de Guadalupe,
ruega por nosotros.
Santo José,
Ruega por nosotros.
Santa Patricio,
Ruega por nosotros.
Santa Padre Domingo.
Ruega por nosotros.
Now a few words from our brother Athanasius.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. This certainly feels like a bit of a strange Brother Athanasius report, seeing that I'm standing here in front of a completely empty church. But fortunately, thanks to the wonders of modern technology, it's still possible for me to speak to you, even though we are physically separated. And I spent a lot of time over the past couple of weeks getting this whole live streaming thing working. And that gave me a lot of opportunity to contemplate both the blessings and the potential curses given to us by modern technology. And to be honest with you, I'm starting to come to the conclusion that perhaps we've overestimated the power of our technology a little bit. For example, when social media first swept across our society, there was this widespread euphoria about its unique ability to bring people together. But nowadays, a decade or so later, I think there's a lot of experience and even a lot of empirical data that suggests that a lot of times social media can do the exact opposite. And in a similar way, I think modern medical technology has achieved such staggering victories over so many diseases in the past decades that a lot of us found ourselves thinking if perhaps our technological wisdom could even someday conquer death itself. But then, at the very height of our confidence in our own abilities, completely out of nowhere, a tiny little virus emerges, a novel coronavirus. It takes the whole world pretty much completely off guard and completely disrupts the entire international order we've worked so hard to construct. Now, I'm no expert in science or medicine or economics or in anything really, but it seems to me that this pandemic that we're living through can teach us something pretty basic, and that's this. We are not the masters of nature. Rather, we are the stewards of nature, and there's a big difference between those two things. This means that no matter how much our scientific wisdom might grow, we will never be total masters of nature. If we were the total masters of nature, we would be God. And of course, we are not God. God is God. And it's very painful for everyone to see all of our beloved churches closed down like this. But I think that if we take this pandemic as an opportunity to step back, to deepen our prayer, and to acknowledge our dependence upon God in a more radical way, then when this virus subsides, which it undoubtedly will, and when our churches open again, which they certainly will, then I hope that we can come back with a renewed gratitude and appreciation for all of God's gifts, but especially for the gift of the Eucharist, that I think we have a little bit taken for granted. So I pray that on that day, when we all come back to church and see each other again, we'll be able to say with King David, I rejoiced when I heard them say, let us go to the house of the Lord.
El Señor esté con ustedes.
Y con tu espíritu.
Inclinen su cabeza para la bendición. La bendición de Dios Todopoderoso, Padre, Hijo y Espíritu Santo, descienda sobre ustedes.
Amén.
Glorifiquen al Señor con su vida. Pueden ir en paz.
Demos gracias.